Hello! Let's talk the Dresden Files. That's right. Today we are discussing Stormfront by Jim Butcher. First book in the Dresden Files series. Not the biggest book. Very approachable. The Dresden Files is one of the most successful urban fantasy series of our time. Perhaps even of all time. I'm not gonna lie. I generally don't have a high opinion of urban fantasy. I find it to be a lower form of art in the fantasy genre. I don't like the subgenre for the most part. Because in my opinion, many urban fantasy stories are just bad mystery novels. And what do I mean when I say that? In a mystery novel, we know how the world works because we live in the world. So when a murder happens, when a robbery happens, a burglary happens, some crime happens, and the detective is trying to solve this mystery, we kind of know how things work. But in urban fantasy, because we don't live in this magical world, we're not privy to all the details about how magic works and all the different factions. So it's a cheap mystery novel because we don't exactly know the rules of the game. So for me, urban fantasy is very hard for me to get into because I feel like the author doesn't have to do a very good job at fleshing things out because at the end, it's magic. Magic's how this thing happened. This was the second time I've read Stormfront. The first time I found it to be pretty forgettable, maybe 2.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely very mid. But I enjoyed it a lot more the second time. Perhaps I'm in a better headspace for this series. Stormfront is essentially a noir mystery novel with some magic. That's what you get. This series is centered around Harry Dresden. He's our protagonist. He's a wizard. He's a good guy. He's funny. He has strong opinions. He has his heart in the right place. He's never trying to take advantage of people. All around good guy. He's easy to root for and he's easy to feel empathy for. Harry Dresden is a very good protagonist to introduce the reader to this magical setting because even though he is a wizard, he is kind of an outsider. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but he's an outsider and an insider. So he describes this magical world to the reader in a way that's digestible. Not too many big info dumps, which aren't very jarring. And he also keeps a little mystery for the reader. We're not exactly sure what all the factions are trying to do. We're not really sure how the magic works. And it makes it pretty fun to follow. Sure, I finished the book and I still don't know the hard rules for how magic works in this world. But I understand a little bit more about the factions at play, and it's a great opening installment to the series. The author, Jim Butcher, did a very good job at introducing tension and conflict and setting up future adventures and future installments in the series, while also making sure that the reader could just read Stormfront and not feel pressured to rush and pick up the next installment of the series because it's very much self-contained. It's always nice when you can take your time with a series, especially in this day and age where people are just releasing trilogies, book after book after book, and then they're done. There's no rush with the Dresden Files, because even though it's not concluded, and it will not be concluded for several years, every story is self-contained from what I understand. So I don't feel the pressure to rush through this series, and that's a good place to be. If you're like me, and you're looking at this long series that's still ongoing, and you want to dive into it, you probably Googled some things about this series. And you'll probably see one main complaint said about the Dresden Files, and that is, Harry Dresden, our main protagonist, is a little old school, and he can be considered pretty sexist. Which isn't very surprising to me because this book was published in, let me look it up, April of the year 2000. I wasn't even 5 yet, if you can believe that. The world has changed a lot in the past 23 years, and I'm certain this book was not controversial in the year 2000. But society changed, people grow more progressive, and now Harry Dresden's sexist attitudes can be seen as kind of grating and kind of jarring and kind of out of place in 2023. And I agree with that. I'm of the belief that you don't need to agree with everything the protagonist believes in to enjoy the story. And for me, Harry Dresden's level of sexism is really a non-issue for me. I'm a big fan of Stephen King, and I'm a big fan of grimdark fantasy, which are centered around bad people, bad characters who hold very damaging, evil beliefs, in my opinion. And I'm still able to be immersed in the story. I'm still able to enjoy the journey. And Harry Dresden is a Boy Scout compared to a lot of the protagonists I follow in the various other stories and series that I pick up. That being said, if sexism is very triggering for you, avoid the Dresden Files. It's escapism for a reason. You're supposed to read it because it makes you happy. I'm not quite sure when I'll pick up the next installment of this series, but I do have a few questions in the meantime about Stormfront, about the world that Jim Butcher's introduced me to. Like, what exactly happened between Harry and his former mentor? Who is he who walks behind? Will Harry and Murphy ever get together? Because I'm really shipping them pretty hard. I think they'd be a great match. And where does the story go from here? What would I rate Stormfront out of 5 stars? Probably 3, maybe 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. It's pretty mid still. I'm willing to be patient with this series. I hear the series gets so much better later on. I hear you kind of just have to grind through the first few installments. The first few installments are just okay, and the first installment was just okay. But I'm very excited to see where the Dresden Files takes me. I will continue on my journey, and I think it's going to be a pretty good time. Thank you for watching my book review. If you liked it, push the little thumbs up icon. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear me talk about any other books. Leave a comment below about what you thought about the Stormfront and how much you love the Dresden Files. And I'll talk to you guys next time.